if you're on carnivore, you're well on your way to breaking your sugar addiction if you haven't broken it already. And if you're considering carnivore, you know, and you can relate to any of these points that I'm making, you know, please consider giving it a try. Hey, this is Brett, the Hoosier Carnivore, coming at you with another video on a pretty interesting topic, sugar addiction. So, wanted to talk about my experiences with sugar addiction and the things that I've kind of struggled with through the years. There's been, you know, we've all had challenges whenever we've started a diet, trying to stick to that diet. And I think a lot of the big reasons why so many of us have never been able to really stick to a diet is because we're addicted to carbs and sugar and processed foods and all the crap they're putting in food these days. I wanted to start off, before we dig into it, to say thank you to all my new subscribers. And you know, I'm overwhelmed with the amount of support that's been coming in, comments, and being invited for live interviews and all that. And I wanted to say thank you, and I really appreciate all the support I've gotten here on the channel. I'm glad you're enjoying the content. And I also wanted to say, on my homepage, there is a GoFundMe link, and that GoFundMe link is not for me. It's for Homestead Hal, Carrie, who's doing the carnivore diet documentary. Please check out his channel and consider giving a couple bucks to help promote and make the carnivore diet documentary. So, sugar addiction. Remember that episode of Seinfeld where George is getting the eclair out of the trash and then like eating it in secret? Now, I know when they made that, they weren't, you know, their thing wasn't about food addiction or sugar addiction, but it really was funny, and it really does demonstrate kind of one of my little battles with sugar addiction. I just couldn't stand, there's just something in my mind, I just couldn't stand seeing something like that go to waste. And I know in the past, you know, years ago, if I would have seen something like that, I can't say that I wouldn't have done exactly what George did in that show, which was really funny. But, you know, even if I, you know, wouldn't have done it, I would have been tempted. And that temptation, I think, is part of the, you know, part of the sugar addiction. That sugar gets our claws into us, and it just doesn't let go. You know, and I was thinking too, you know, was it that I just couldn't stand to see some kind of food go to waste, or was it something deeper?
Or was it something deeper, Captain?
And I think it was something deeper. Why can't we just have one of something? When we're eating the standard American diet, we're eating carbs and sugar and stuff. Why can't we just have one cookie, one donut, one chip, one slice of pizza? I'm not one of these people who could, you know, be at a party and see a plate of cookies or something and take one and maybe take just like a bite out of it and then not finish it. You know, not finishing it, it just wasn't in the cards. It just, you know, if I'm taking a cookie or a donut, it's getting finished, and there's probably gonna be a couple more behind it. I also used to, and you know, and then there's things that just, sugar addiction, I think, just does something strange to our mind, because I used to sneak food, maybe not the way George did on the show, but, you know, I would eat stuff while no one was looking. You know, I'm guilty of that. And I think I'm just trying to paint a picture of what sugar addiction looks like, you know, and I'm sure it looks different for everyone. We're all different. We all have, you know, we're all tempted in different ways. You know, but I think for a lot of people, it goes beyond the physical. You know, there's a big mental aspect to it as well. And, you know, some people may just say, oh, I have a sweet tooth.
Daddy's got a sweet tooth tonight!
Or, you know, other people have said, man, this is so good, I think it's got crack in it. Well, in a way, you know, they're not wrong about that. And I guess you know, we only laugh about stuff like that because there's a little bit of truth in it. And, you know, studies have shown that sugar and carbs, you know, they can cause a rise in dopamine the same way someone who takes cocaine can have a rise in dopamine. So sneaking away and having some Little Debbie's or Doritos or whatever, you know, gives you that dopamine release in it, and it makes you feel good, but it's definitely not the right thing to do, and it's not good for you. But my sugar addiction, you know, it was kind of like that. Most of mine, I think, it had a mental hold on me, and maybe, you know, it does for you as well. And I think that's why it's so hard to break that sugar addiction. But it would actually control my thoughts and my decision-making processes and control my actions. I could be driving down the road and just have like a little bit of hunger or just an inkling that, you know, you just want something. And I would pull off onto a gas station and, you know, get a bag of Doritos and a couple Coke Zeros, and then drive down the road and eat the whole bag and stop at McDonald's. And, you know, I've eaten, even if I wasn't hungry, I just felt like I needed another something, another hit, I guess. Another hit of sugar, another hit of dopamine. You know, so, you know, it's hard to talk about a little bit, you know, with, you know, admitting that, you know, you're addicted to something. I don't think any of us enjoy admitting that we were addicted to, had food addiction or sugar addiction or anything. But I mean, I've been to the point where I've eaten fast food 2 or 3 or 4 times in one day. I'd stop for breakfast at a fast food restaurant, and then a couple hours later I'd stop for lunch, and a couple hours later I'd stop for second lunch, and then maybe even grab a French fry or, you know, something extra on the way home. Or if I go out and pick up something for the kids, I'd stop and grab a little something in the drive-through for me and get rid of the evidence before I got home. You know, I think we've all done that, and you know, if you've done that, you know, you're not alone, because the sugar addiction is real. You know, I could binge on Doritos and barbecue chips and never really even get full. And that sugar addiction, you know, it messes with your hunger cues. And that's something that Carnivore will help you fix. It'll help reestablish those hunger cues, and you'll know when you're actually hungry, and you'll know when you're full. Because I could eat Doritos, and I'm sure you've been there too. There's foods that you could eat until you're just absolutely sick, and you just feel like you can't move, and you just stuff yourself with it, almost like it's a bottomless pit. You know, I could binge on that stuff and then, you know, pop a bag of popcorn and have that right before bed, which was the last thing, you know, we all needed to do. But it's in the past, and we're moving past it. If you're on Carnivore, you're well on your way to breaking your sugar addiction if you haven't broken it already. And if you're considering Carnivore, you know, and you can relate to any of these points that I'm making, you know, please consider giving it a try. You know, um, some of the markers, now that I think back, some of the markers of my sugar addiction, you know, I felt like I didn't want to kind of live without it. Sorry about the cicadas. It's late summer here in Indiana, and the cicadas can get noisy. But, you know, I felt like I just couldn't live without it, and, you know, I didn't want to think about living without it. And my thoughts would just be bent on that kind of stuff all day. That's why I couldn't pass up, you know, a gas station if I got hungry at all. You know, I just felt like I had to pull over and just get something, you know. And if you, the kind of person who refers to foods as mine or my, like, oh, I've got to have my fruit, or I've got to have my French fries, I've got to have my chicken fingers, I got to have my chips, I got to have my brownies, or whatever it happens to be, that is a sign of addiction. And you need to look inward and think about that, because if those are your thoughts, that is a sign of addiction. And I would find myself looking for it around the house. Even after I started Carnivore, when I was still getting through stuff, you know, I'm opening the pantry, opening the refrigerator, just having a look, just to see what's in there. I already know what's in there, but, you know, something got me out of my chair, and I just walked over and looked, and, well, yeah, there's no Doritos in here. There's no pretzels in here. There's no snacks in here. But I couldn't help myself from getting up and looking. Lastly, I just wanted to hit a few things. Carnivore is more than just victories on the scale and losing weight. Beating sugar addiction, if you've been able to do it, that's a major victory, and you should give yourself a pat on the back, because over 90%, it's been estimated, of Americans are addicted to sugar and carbohydrates in some form. And you know, sugar takes many forms, not just glucose and table sugar and fructose, which is in fruit, and fruit juice. And, you know, it's more than just that. You know, there's sugar, they put sugar in almost everything. And when you become a carnivore or into keto, you got to be an expert at reading labels and finding sugar. And you'll find, if you go through your kitchen right now, there's sugar in almost everything of some form, whether it's actual sugar, whether it's fructose, high fructose corn syrup, dextrose, maltodextrin. Those are all forms of sugar. There's even sugar in cigarettes and tobacco products. It's crazy. And there's no such thing really as a healthy sugar or a healthy carbohydrate. The human body only needs protein, healthy fats, and carbohydrates are not an essential macronutrient. And when you think about it, if you look into it a little bit, carbohydrates are basically just a couple sugar molecules. And simple carbohydrates like fruit juice, milk, candy, syrups, soda, pastries, white bread, cookies, donuts, cakes, pies, that kind of stuff, it breaks down to sugar. It breaks down to sugar in your bloodstream extremely fast. And, you know, if you've had problems with diabetes or type 2 diabetes, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You can almost feel the rush of it. And then, you know, there's complex carbohydrates like, you know, grains and potatoes and rice and corn and things like that. And even though those process slower, they still turn into sugar. So essentially, if you think about it, eating a candy bar is the same as eating corn or rice. You know, it may not spike your blood sugar as quickly, but it all does turn into sugar. So you don't have to be a slave to your sugar and carbohydrate addiction anymore. give the carnivore diet a try. 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. I think you'll be really glad that you did. And by going with an all meat-based diet, it'll clear that excess sugar out of your body. It'll clean up, it'll lower your A1C. It'll reverse your type 2 diabetes. And if you're type 1, it can considerably help with the amount of insulin you may have to inject. You can basically turn your body from a sugar burning machine into a ketone fat burning machine, and the weight will just come off and you'll feel fantastic. You know, it's just hard to describe, you know, how well I feel now being on the carnivore diet. So please consider giving it a try. Don't take my word for it. Check around. There's tons of free resources here on YouTube. You know, nobody's trying to sell you anything. You don't have to buy a membership. You don't have to join a club or anything. Check out videos by Dr. Ken Berry. He's got hundreds and hundreds of videos. The man's a genius when it comes to carnivore and keto. And also check out Homestead How, which is my Hoosier carnivore for this time around. Kerry from Homestead How. He's been doing so much for the carnivore community. He's making the carnivore diet documentary, and he's hosting a 24-hour live coming up September 16th. So if you want to hear more about it, there's going to be 24 hours of special guests and doctors and people with carnivore channels like mine, although, you know, quite a bit more successful, but really great people. If you want to know more, this is your time to tune in, do your research, all the free information you like. So I hope you like this video. Please like, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks.